Welcome, my noble brothers and sisters in Christ. Welcome to the Gospel Rescue Mission. And today I want to speak to you about a man after God's own heart. A man named David. Probably somewhat familiar with this guy. I mean, he is the king of Israel. Eventually, all other kings of Israel are referred back to him. They would say he was a good guy, but not as good as David. He didn't have a heart after God like David did. Everyone is compared to David because he was so exceptional at loving God. But who was this David? Well, you go back long before he was known to be a man after God's own heart, long before he was king. He was the 8th son of Jesse. And as the 8th son, they had a family party. Samuel was coming, the prophet, and they were all excited about David, about the Samuel being there. But David wasn't invited to that party. But eventually, Samuel says, you know what, you have an 8th son, let's bring him in. And that's when David is anointed to be king. But his own family had somewhat rejected him and pushed him aside. That had to hurt a little bit. There had to be some feelings of inferiority being the youngest. A little while later, the nation of Israel is in a battle. They're fighting. And David becomes the Uber Eats of his day. His father gives him some food and says, take it to your brothers and to their captains, and he takes the food out there. But while he's out there, he notices that the Philistines send their champion Goliath out, and all the people of Israel hide and they scamper and they tremble inside their armor. And he says, you know what, I can take him because I have this God who is superior. I have this God who is sovereign over all things, and he will give me victory over this giant. And that is exactly what happens. David becomes a bit of a celebrity. He kills Goliath. A little while later, the king Saul is having some troubles keeping his emotions in check, and they hire David to come and be the psalmist, to play the harp and bring peace and calmness. So something to notice about David is he's not only a warrior who can fight, he's also a lover who can love. He has this perfect balance, something to keep in mind. If you want to have a heart after God, you have to be able to fight and love and live a life that glorifies God. So David is working for Saul, and some of the times as he gets a little bit older, he is put in charge of different troops, and those troops go out and have their victories. And this is what really gets him in trouble, is because he's a man after God's own heart, he starts to experience a little bit of success in his life. And as the success comes, celebrity comes, and they start singing this song, is Saul has killed his thousands and David gets tens of thousands. David gets credit for this, and instead of rejoicing over his captain giving great victory, he gets jealous. Saul is very insecure. If you want to see what an insecure person looks like, check out King Saul. But he starts to try to kill David. David realizes in that moment, David realizes his life is in danger, and if he hopes to have any level of success, he needs to get out of Dodge. And so he goes out in the wilderness. And I want to read to you today from 1 Samuel 22 about some time while he was in the wilderness. It says this. It says, all those who were in distress or in debt or discontented gathered around him, and he became their leader. About 400 men were with him. Notice who's there. There's men in distress, the debtors, the discontented. Now, I'll tell you here at the Gospel Rescue Mission, that is exactly who we have here. That's who comes and hangs out with us here at the Gospel Rescue Mission. Are those who are discontented, those who are uncomfortable, those who are scoundrels by society's standards, criminals, addicts. So that we not only have those in distress, the debtors, the discontented, we got scoundrels, addicts, and criminals surrounding this place. You might say some of them are lazy. We surround ourselves with, a little bit like David did. David surrounded himself with this population of men and women, and he believed there was something inside of them. You know, I've come to understand that there are many communities around Muskogee that actually don't want those sort of people in their community. They don't mind them being put in their jails, but they don't want to see them. They don't want to see the homeless. They don't want to see those who are poor. They don't want to see those who look a little bit different than the rest of us. They just don't want them there. They don't want the people in distress, the debtors, the discontented, the scoundrels, criminals, and addicts. And I'm embarrassed to say, but it's also true in the church. The church does not want these men and women to be part of their congregation. They don't go out and welcome them in. They don't go out to the highways and byways and bring in these people in distress, the debtors, the discontented, the scoundrels, the criminals, and the addicts. And I'll be honest with you, there's some challenges with these men and women, so I understand where they're coming from. They can be difficult. Check out what happens with Samuel, in the book of Samuel, chapter 30, just fast forwarding, where David's dealing with in some of this. In verse 6, they've grown up to about 600 of these guys, and they went off, they've been fighting and helping out the Philistine king, but they've been rejected, and they come back to their home, and their home has been ransacked. Someone is coming in and taking a lot of their stuff. They've taken their spouses and their children, and they've taken off. And when they come back, they all look at David, their leader. These these are people in distress, the debtors, the discontented, the scoundrels, criminals, and addicts, the lazy. And everyone looks at them and says, "We are going to kill you, David." In 1 Samuel chapter 30, verse 6 says, "David was greatly distressed because the men were talking of stoning him. Each one was bitter in spirit because of his sons and daughters. But David found strength in the Lord his God." Then the Lord said, "Hey, let's rise up. Let's go do something about this." And they go out and they chase them down. You get to verse 21. They've successfully retrieved their goods. But on the way there, something that happened is that 200 of them became tired. They became weary. And David looks at this and says, "You know what? This is an opportunity for us to go faster. This is an opportunity for us to move out. So we're going to leave our goods here. We're going to leave our baggage here. And you guys stay with that stuff. And we're going to go out and do the fighting. Then we'll come back." So in a way, this actually helps David out. Gets them there a little faster, have some victory. But also gives these guys a break. But when they come back, verse 21 says, "Then David came to the 200 men who had been too exhausted to follow him and who were left behind at the Bezor ravine. They came out to meet David and the people with him. As David and his men approached, he greeted them. But all the evil men," again, these are the people in distress, the debtors, the discontented, the scoundrels, the criminals and the addicts, the evil men and troublemakers among David's followers said, "Because they did not go out with us, we will not share with them the plunder we recovered. However, each man may take his wife and his children and go." And then David overrules that idea. You know, the men and women who come into the Gospel Rescue Mission, sometimes they lie, they steal, not only from the mission, but they steal from each other. They steal from local stores. They cause all sorts of trouble. They cheat. They proudly sin in any way they possibly can. If it was possible, they have a t-shirt say, "Hi, my name is, and I'm proud of," whatever sin that is they choose to select. They start fights, and they rob each other and insult each other. They loiter and hang out where they're not supposed to. They cause all kinds of trouble. They are not agreeable to our flesh. They're not agreeable to society. They're not the best of society necessarily. But God. If you go to 2 Samuel chapter 23, I'm not going to read that right now. You're going to see what becomes of these men. See, they become the mighty men of God. These are the very people that David surrounded himself with that start to become a little bit more like him. These are men and women who rise up and they become the heroes of Israel, the mighty men. You can read about all their exploits again in 2 Samuel chapter 23. But how incredible is that? Now these guys were people in distress, the debtors, the discontented, the scoundrels, the criminals, and the addicts, but now they're mighty men. So I ask you to consider this. How would your society, how would your community, how would your church benefit from having a few more mighty men in your congregation? A few more mighty women accomplishing great things in your church. How would that be? How would that benefit you? I think it would have a great benefit. As I'm talking about this, I want you to kind of imagine this. Now, many of us would like to have a whole bunch of caterpillars laying around. They're not the most attractive of insects to be floating around and doing all these things. They would be like those people in distress, the debtors, the discontented, the scoundrels, the criminals, and the addicts. They may not look like much. But you know the DNA, that the real character of those caterpillars comes out later when they become the butterfly. Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be an incredible scene that you open the doors of your church and butterflies are flying out everywhere? See, in the Gospel Rescue Mission, those same people I was just talking about, we have Richard, who wants to be a chef. We have Dina, who wants to be a recovery specialist. We have Bobby, who wants to be a business owner. By the way, Bobby was a drug dealer doing illegal business, but would like to get into legal business. He's got a mind for this. Jamie wants to be a Dr. Clarence. He just wants to get his family back together. And we have tons of stories like that to encourage you and inspire you, because these are caterpillars ready to become butterflies in our community. Now, you in your community may not want them around, but I want more mighty men, so I need to surround myself with these people who currently would be seen as people in distress, the debtors, the discontented, the scoundrels, criminals, and addicts, because those are going to become the butterflies. Those are going to become the mighty men. Our community needs them. So when we chase them away, we put them on a bus and take them to other communities, just dump them off, which a lot of your communities are doing, formally or informally. A lot of your churches are rejected, and they're going to show up at another church. I want to challenge you, if your church is, to go out in the highways and byways and find the poor. Go find the homeless. Bring them into your church and say, I want to help you become the butterfly. What is your hope? What is your dream? I'm not going to babysit you. I'm going to help you become the man of God you were designed to be. You were designed to be a mighty man. You were designed to be a mighty woman of God. And we at the Gospel Rescue Mission can help you with that. So in the meantime, you can contact me on our Facebook page at grmmuskogee.org. Our website is there, or like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. You can call us up here and volunteer. You can come take a tour. You can donate. We always need the funding, because we are ministering to these caterpillars so that they can become butterflies, and you can be a part of that. My name is Rich Schaus. I'm the Executive Director of the Gospel Rescue Mission. Thank you for taking these past 12 minutes to listen to everything we were saying. Go out. Reach the lost. Love them. In the name of